Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Prime Time. First, in a two-part series, Reputation Today is organizing along with ClanConnect, a platform that brings brands and influencers together. After this show, make sure you check clanconnect.ai and experience this platform firsthand. As we unveil ClanConnect with a panel of marketeers and influencers, this edition of Prime Time will focus on the future of influencer engagement. A warm welcome to all our panelists and the 180 plus participants who registered on Zoom. There were also 115 members of the PR club who were invited to this session. This session is also being live streamed on YouTube at bit.ly Reputation Today on YT. So if you're facing any issues connecting via Zoom, you may always switch to YouTube and continue attending from there, but without the option of asking any questions. For those who are attending via Zoom, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A box, and the moderator will try to pick as many as she can during the session. Please avoid using the chat box for this. Before I introduce the panelists, let me remind you, the hashtag for the session is RTPrimeTime. Please tweet using the hashtag RTPrimeTime, and don't forget to tag our partner at ClanConnect1, along with Rep Today Mag. I would now like to welcome our panelists in alphabetical order. Achint Setia, Vice President and Head of Marketing at Myntra. Faisal Khan, Founder at MotorBeam and an influencer in the world of automobile. Kunal Sinha, Co-Founder at ClanConnect. Shilpa Arora, Co-Founder of ChicLifeByte and a lifestyle influencer. And Udit Malhotra, Head of Marketing and Content Strategy at MG Motor India. And moderating the panel today is Shreya Krishnan, who wears many hats but is here in her capacity as advisor, the Promise Foundation. Over to you, Shreya, to set the context for this discussion.
Hello, everybody. It's a smasher of a panel that we have with us today. We have both brands and influencers. The branding and the influencing context has changed so much, and especially in the last 6 months, you hear so much about what's going on and what's happening in the whole influencer scenario. There are some mind-boggling numbers, there are some interesting insights, and all of that's going to flow out and come through in the next hour or so that we will be talking with all of you. Without further ado, I'm going to start with Kunal, and I'm going to ask him to start with the context and some insights into this entire industry and what it's looking like. And then I'll move on to each one of you for a minute or so to share your starting thoughts, and then we'll take it from there. Kunal, please go. If you can just unmute yourself. Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As a communicator, I've been seeing how digital world has actually changed how the brand is connecting with their end consumers. And from the time the digital world has come in, the brand has started to realize the potential of digital and started to actually experiment with everything that is coming our way. And digital is still evolving, and as it is evolving, there is a new set of audience that we are able to cater to, and these audience are largely connected with a specific set of leaders who are subject matter experts. And largely in last 4 years, we've seen that how these subject matter experts are becoming the key vehicle for the brands to actually do meaningful conversation with their end consumer. And that is where our entire idea of actually understanding this market and looking at this market and the way the market was growing, we realized that there has to be a tech play which will actually help the marketers to actually do the right decisions. So what currently we see is that the market is valued at 9 billion, expected to grow to 25 billion by the year 2025. And there are huge number of subject matter experts who we are calling influencers, who are actually creating huge number of content and connecting with the end consumer in a way that they are able to generate meaningful conversation. And there is a mind-boggling numbers of metrics that the marketers have to deal with. And our purpose with ClanConnect is to simplify these numbers for them. We need to actually make these numbers meaningful for them to make the right decision and make a very targeted campaign for the brands. And that is the idea of ClanConnect. We want to make influencer marketing simple and scalable, because largely I believe when I say scalable, I would want brands to tomorrow start doing campaigns with 1,000 influencers, which is difficult today to manage. And it has to be a tech play that will enable that kind of a scale for a brand to execute a campaign like that. So that's about ClanConnect. I'm excited to have a conversation with the
Thanks,
brand
Kunal.
leaders and the influencers here and have some insights from them.
Thanks, Kunal. Udit, I'll hand the baton over to you. Why don't we hear your initial opening thoughts, and then from Udit, I'll move to Shilpa, and then I'll come to the rest of you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Udit. I take care of marketing at MG Motor. For us, and in general, when we talk about the influencer marketing space, it's always about three things that come to our mind. It is trust and transparency. It is authenticity. And it is about micro communities of, everybody has some of the other kind of forte or some of the other kind of following. So, for example, if it's Shilpa, if it's Faisal, they have their own stickiness for a set of audiences that we are dealing with. And what we feel is marketing cannot solve everything for everything in a general sense. So, this is the plethora of, there's a plethora of content that is already available, but how do you make it relevant? How do you make it contextual? And more than anything else in today's world, what people are seeing right now is, or searching for right now is authentic content, transparent opinions. So that's the genesis of influencer marketing, at least for us. And that's how we want to cascade it, to the right set of audiences.
You spoke about two poignant things, both content and authenticity. So on that note, Shilpa, your opening comments, please.
Sure. Thank you so much. Guys, just to introduce myself, I am Shilpa Arora and I run my blogging site called ChicLifeByte. Apart from that, I'm also active on Instagram, Twitter, TripAdvisor, Facebook, Zomato, etc. I would say influencer as a term has come up in the last 1 or 2 years. I started blogging way back in 2015 and it's been a joyride, I would say. Before being an influencer, I used to have a Corpcom 9-to-5 job. But I wanted to do much more than the usual 9-to-5 things that I was doing. There were a lot of untold stories which I wanted to bring out. A lot of things about the brands which I wanted to tell the audience, which I couldn't do earlier. And that's the reason why I came up with my blog. And from then to now, we've been growing. New mediums have come up. The industry has grown. And there has been so much that we have seen and learned on the go. So with that thought, I would say that I'm feeling privileged that I'm with some really eminent people from the industry. And I think this will be a great time. I'll have a great time hearing thoughts and giving my own opinions. Yeah.
Thanks, Shilpa. I'm going to move now to Faisal. Faisal, if we can hear from you, and then I'll come to you, Achint.
Yeah, hi, my name is Faisal Khan. I'm the founder of MotorBeam and I'm also an influencer. I have been in this since a real long time. I started blogging at the age of 17 when I was still like just passing out of school and getting into college. So it's been a very fun and joyride. So I've seen it like at a time where nobody used to believe in influencers, even if you want a product review, like obviously today automakers with whom I deal with, they are very, open to the idea of giving you a car. And even if it's a Rolls Royce, I've driven those as well. And like, there's no issue nowadays because brands have become really very digital savvy as well. So that understanding is happening. And I think going forward, this is just going to get better because earlier it was more about, traditional media. Even in terms of online, it was more of, reviews, text reviews and proper video reviews and all. But now it's moving beyond that. It's also moving into social media. Some of these brands are very smart. They understand that if they send me a car, if I do some social media stories, that is also worth a lot. So there are brands which get in touch with me and they say, we'll send you a car, drive it for a few days. And I'm talking about a luxury car brand. And they tell me, you don't need to do any review and all. You can just put some social media post pictures and all. So that is the level of understanding some brands are having right now. Unfortunately, some of the brands still are yet to get there, still having the old school thought. So, slowly, I think it's going to really evolve. And obviously, it's very beneficial both for influencers as well as for brands.
Thanks so much, Faisal. And now let's hear from Achint. Achint, what are your thoughts? We've heard now one brand and two influencers. Let's hear it from you.
Yeah, thanks, Shreya. And hi, everyone. Good evening. Pleasure to be here. In my role as looking after marketing for Myntra, which is in the fashion space, working with influencers is a very, very core part of our entire strategy. And it's a very close ecosystem that we work with. There are a lot of things which have evolved in this ecosystem in recent time, the last 2 to 3 years, as some of the other panelists have said. A couple of thoughts I'll share, and then we'll talk more about it. One, it is a very nascent ecosystem. I think it is moving from becoming an indulgence to a profession, right? And that is a very important journey that a lot of influencers are going through right now. That's one. And in that process, what we also realize is, less than 1% of the influencers in India, registered influencers in India, are ever paid for anything, right? So there's a big gap between aspiration and the market supply in terms of feeding people to become influencers. So that's one part of it. The second, when it comes to fashion, right? For me, as I look at an influencer, there are 3 things which are important. As an influencer, you could either give knowledge, you could give inspiration, or you could give voice, right, to the consumers. And either of these 3, they are necessary and sufficient conditions to become a great influencer. And you see, in the fashion space particularly, there are some elements of this which is around inspiration and knowledge, which can trump over some of the other ones. In some of the other sectors, knowledge and voice trump over the other ones, but that is collectively how a good influencer actually shapes up, their conversations with consumers and their fan pools. So very, very early in, nascent industry right now, we are making a lot of bets and investments into this, and look forward to, discussing and learning with this panel.
Thanks so much, Achint. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to jump right in with the questions, and I'm going to go exactly in reverse. So Achint, I'm going to start with you. You did allude to it a little bit. It is 9 billion as an ecosystem, and it's looking at growing every single day. So what does this mean for brands? So I'll ask you in terms of how are you looking at this ecosystem, and then I'll move to Udit, and then I'll flip the question to the other 2 we have on the other side. So if you can just go with that one.
Yeah, see, again, I'll build from what I was saying. The brand, any brand for that matter, and some brands may leverage the influencer ecosystem more than some of the others, but they have to start with the objective of marketing, right? Or the objective of engaging with the influencer ecosystem as a strategic reason for it. So if I look at, the ecosystem, for example, that Faisal would be working on, it's a very knowledge heavy, research first ecosystem before you make the choice. Unlike a fashion ecosystem where it is a far more visually impulsive driven ecosystem, right? You like something and you want to buy it. And the brand has to be very clear when they pick up an influencer or they decide to go on an influencer campaign as to what is the objective at that point in time, right? So for example, I'll give you an example in fashion per se. When we are launching a new beauty product, a lot of consumers, the women consumers, for example, they would have a set of concerns in mind in terms of the trust, in terms of what will it do to your skin, in terms of, who else has used it and, what are their reviews from this one. So there's a strong angle of knowledge, and sharing your experience, which is what trumps over everything else, right? From the looks of it and everything else, right? At the end of the day. But when there is a campaign which is talking about, a new apparel, or a new style or a new trend, I think it's all about looks. It's all about how do you pair it. It's all about how do you bring it to life in a setting and context. And the purpose of the influencer activation would be very different. But in both of these, if you observe, the idea is very simple. There are few things, actually a lot of things, which consumers don't believe brands for, right? It has to come from someone, to this point, right? Who they can trust, who can actually showcase them, either by using it themselves or, sharing an experience which is far more nuanced than just talking about the superficial aspects of it, right? So this piece, is important for brands to understand, to be very clear on the objective before you start any such influencer engagement.
Okay, great. So Udit, I'll come to you and I'll ask you the same question. So what does this look like? This massive, monstrous ecosystem, the way it's building up. What's in it for you? What are you looking at? What excites you about it?
I think I'll go back to my agency days just to give you a little context when I was with Genesis BCW. And that, I think approximately 8 to 10 years back, this used to be, there's something, people used to call blogger engagement karte hain, let's do blogger engagement. And I remember I used to handle this brand called Avon, and we used to work with fashion influencers and stuff like that. Like Faisal said, I think there is a huge evolution in the way brands are approaching influencers. So in our view, what I do definitely feel is that there is a passive and an active influencer strategy. Again, going back to the fact that what is that you're trying to achieve out of the entire campaign? What are the tangible outcomes? What are the influence level outcomes? And what will the actual influencer deliver for you? I think those are some of the fundamental questions that we need to ask each other. But the bigger question of a strategy, and there's a 5C strategy that at least we follow at MG. It is called content, collaboration, community, conversation, and commerce. While commerce is the least important funnel, at least from an auto ticket point of view, it may be something very compelling for, let's say, a Myntra, where, like you said, the visual look and feel actually determines the point of sale, and there would be some attribution that the influencer can bring into the table. Might not be 100%, might be just 5%. So that is there. And the last part, which I definitely feel is a big deficit, and which I do feel even ClanConnect can bring to the table, or marketing automation tools can bring to the table, is transparency in the way you're measuring the influencer. What is the measurement KPI? Because most of us today are stuck with top level, measurement KPIs: reach, engagement, the number of followers. We're stuck at view throughs. That may be good for a really good, impressive internal board review where you're just claiming to fame an influencer campaign, but I don't think that this could be accomplished with passive peaks. If I have a product engagement and I say, let's do an influencer campaign, do a 2-week burst, and I'm done. Might work for one industry, but I do feel at least in automotive, you need a 6 months gestation period. There are years of relationship building exercise that's happening. And there is also a fine line between publisher content and influencer content. So, you can go as micro as a micro influencer, and you can go to the middle tier influencers. Like our example, when we collaborated with Tripoto 3 years back, people question why is MG doing an Indian abroad with Amol Parashar and Tripoto? Because we wanted to own that space, let's say. So there we said, let's get the travel reach of, let's say, a Tripoto, which is probably India's one of the most visited or coveted sites for travel-oriented audiences, detailed audiences that are visiting that website. And then we get an Amol, a person like me, paint me a picture, and, we're getting into that relevancy funnel. And there have been learnings across. Similarly, when we look at, the association that we've done on the positive community front with the Better India, we collaborated with United Nations Women. They came on board. They are also potential influencers in their own way. So I think there is a fine balance of what do you want to attain out of the entire engagement. And one thing that brands need to also, accept is just getting an influencer will still get you the organic reach, but you need to invest in paid media or paid reach, even with the influencers, if you want to reach out to the full set of audiences. So, some of the smart marketeers or, relatively new marketeers would say, based on the number of followers, they'll actually go ahead and say, this is the potential reach. But that measurement gap is the biggest halo where some of the best campaigns fail. We've not reached it.
I'll come back to you. The measurement is surely one of the questions that I have for the entire panel as well. I'm going to now quickly flip to Shilpa and Faisal, and I'm going to ask both of you to tell us what this ecosystem and the growth means to you guys from the other side. So Shilpa, we'll start with you, and then I'll go to Faisal.
Sure. It's actually, I feel really happy that it's a $9 billion influencer ecosystem now. And I'm so glad that I made a few dollars in that ecosystem. I would say that the market is developing and the brands are also adapting the new way of promotion. Brands need to promote their products where their target audience is. And obviously social media and blogs are one of the key aspects. Today, every influencer has their own identity. And it's actually good to keep that reality check in place, and that has to be done from the brand side as well. When I started out, I did my own research, and what I realized was most of those blogs were very pictorially driven. 5 pictures, 10 lines, khata. But a prospective customer doesn't want to look at 10 different websites to make that prospective purchase. It could be a mobile phone, it could be an automobile, it could be a cloth, it could be a garment, but it has to be, he should go to one place where he gets all the information and then make their prospective purchase. And that's the reason why we thought content is the king. And that's, if you look at any of our blog or Instagram page, it's mostly elaborate with key attention to detail. For example, if you go to a restaurant, you don't only consume food, you consume the ambience. You look at the presentation and all those aspects. Keeping all those aspects in mind, you make that potential purchase ki is restaurant mein jana hai, nahi jana hai. I would say that is the key thing. And influence is obviously a less expensive way of communication, and as compared to the traditional advertising, and it's real too. A seamless integration of the product in an influencer's life would work wonders for the product and the brand.
Thanks so much, Shilpa. Faisal, let's hear from you.
So I would want to say something, what Achint had said, that it's a very knowledge driven thing, which is obviously right. But beyond that, I think the change has happened where it's also a very experience driven industry now. That's the reason automakers would really, pamper you, give you the best experience, because that is something which you will recall. And of course, the gestation period is long. The most important thing is that buying a car is not something everyone does every year, even perhaps in a few years. And it's an expensive purchase. So that influence, there are multiple levels of influence which is happening. Now, the audience, the actual decision maker in a family might not be the father. It might be the child who's 16 years old. And that person would definitely connect better with me than probably someone senior or from traditional media. And at the end of the day, they are influencing their parents after liking a particular product, because parents are not really passionate about the car. Like most parents are not. And children obviously love cars. So this, for me personally, it's also very passion driven. That's the reason why if I have to create content, there are cars I know they will not get much views. I will still put the same kind of effort because I personally like it, and that reflects. So I think irrespective of how many billion-dollar industry this is, what really matters is that an influencer has to keep evolving. Okay, there's no one fixed formula. Nobody can teach you to be an influencer. Nobody can tell you that this is right and this is wrong. It's your own personal style, which also has to evolve over time, because like obviously with time, the market changes, market evolves, and obviously more influencers come here, more competition. So that keeps changing all the time.
Right. Okay. So round 2 is not going to be as easy. I'm going to tighten this up a bit. You guys get a line or 2 lines per question, because I have about 6 or 7 and the audience has already started asking questions as well. So I'm going to keep this as tight as possible because we're running out of time as we speak. What are brands looking for in an influencer? Niche or reach? So how can brands take an informed call? I'll start with the brands and then stop at Kunal, and then I'll switch the lens to the influencers. So Udit, if you can start and tell us, what is it that you're looking for? Is it reach or is it niche?
I think to answer it fairly, I need both. And that's where, but obviously we'll like to go a lot into different categories. Okay, so when you say niche, I would say travel, I would say lifestyle, I would say immersive experiences. Reach we can get from an advertising campaign as well. I'm just saying, if you have to do a cross measurement or validation. So in honesty, both. In greediness, yes, both. But from a relevancy point of view, like I said, it's an active strategy which will not stop in one day. So it has to continue, it's pervasive.
Right. Achint, let's hear from you and what you have to say. Niche, reach.
Between the two, reach. Definitely reach. I think niche is very, very subjective, to the industry that you're talking about. But reach not just in terms of the number of people you reach out to, but also in terms of how many conversations you can create from what you do as an influencer. Yeah.
Right. Kunal, tell us, when I come to the reach niche question, what is it that you have to say in context of this?
Actually, we're the platform which will actually enable them to make the choices when they've made the decision. I think we've already spoken about content, we've spoken about authenticity, we've spoken about the idea of every campaign would be different, but what is very, very critical is, and what briefly Udit touched upon, is the data part of it. And I believe that today I'm a big fan of the movie Moneyball, and Moneyball actually utilized effectively data to actually cost effectively make a winning team. And that is what our idea is, that we want to make their influencer campaign into a winning campaign by actually giving the strategy of Moneyball. We will be enabling them to actually make choices with 30 different metrics that they can actually look at. And when we go full live, which is October mid, I could possibly tell you that you can just come with a question and we'll have an answer to each question that you have. So if you have a budget and you want to define reach, we'll give you an answer. If you have a influencer in name and you want to see that who can give you a campaign at a lesser cost, we can give you that answer. So we have almost, and we're calling it Clan Magic, which my co-founder is saying that we don't want to call it Clan Magic. But once we are live, I think that magic will start showing, and that magic is, I think today we're calling it AI, but I think it is the magic of machine which is learning with different data points that are getting rolled over on different campaigns that are running across the world.
Right. So I'll come back to you. Yeah. So I'll come back to you. Let me just hear from Faisal and Shilpa. So Faisal, when you're crafting campaigns for brands, when you're looking at starting these conversations, are you starting with the reach or niche question, or like you said, is it just the passion that drives it? Let's hear from you and then from Shilpa.
So brands want everything all the time. So they want niche, they want reach, they want production quality. They don't want it to look sponsored at all, yet they want to ensure that you speak the marketing words as well. So it gets in a very tricky situation. Obviously the agency helps in that part because they balance things out. When I'm pitching to brands, so I would obviously love to do niche work, but brands definitely look at reach as the most important thing. But somewhere there's a disconnect, because most brands think that, if you have X subscribers means X number of views you're going to be getting. That's like a given for them. So they think that itna hai to matlab those many views are going to come. First thing is that. Secondly, somewhere brands don't understand that, like how on TV also you spend some money in production, you spend some money to, get that TV advertisement slot. That is a kind of approach that can be used online. And there are certain brands which actually do that as well. And later there's a question where I would like to share more about what exactly I'm talking.
Right. Shilpa, niche, reach, question mark, question mark.
I would actually say it depends from brand to brand. So today, if it's a luxury brand or a designer label, they would look at a niche. For example, if it's a Rohit Bal or a very premium luxury car, it will be niche, because obviously the masses won't buy that kind of product. But if you're looking at audience, if you're looking at a fashion brand, an FMCG brand, or a consumer durable, then obviously the masses. So because that's where your potential or target audience is. And accordingly, the brands would also look at the right influencer. When we also do a campaign, generally when you boost certain campaigns, that's when the reach and niche needs to be looked at, and accordingly we segment our analysis.
Right. So there you go. You've heard it from both brands, influencers, and of course the data engine that's perhaps going to sort of solve this larger issue of how to take an informed call. Now I'll start with Faisal and Shilpa and then move to the brands. What are influencers looking to build? Again, does it come from a place of passion, knowledge, / or is it quality versus quantity? Is there something specific that you guys are trying to build as you started this journey? And both of you have had fairly interesting journeys as influencers, so tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I would say both quantity as well as quality is very important. The number game is important for influencers as well, because when a brand comes to their page, they look at the number of followers, and if the followers are high, it's more impressive. But at the same time, it's very important to have quality content as well as a quality of followers, because even when I promote a product, it's obviously that I want sales for that product, or I want to build awareness for that product with the right target audience, and hence I want the right people to follow me, so that when I'm promoting a product, it results in the right kind of sales and awareness.
Faisal, let's hear from you, and quality versus quantity, or both.
Obviously it's both. So basically you have a set quality, like you will never ever put your quality below it. And obviously you have to do quantity, because that's how the audience gets very sticky with you, because there are times like you set your time. My time is set that 9 o'clock I'll post on a particular platform. People are aware of that. If I miss it, then it's like, people wonder, where have you gone? Where have you disappeared? Similarly for me, like I have been posting videos on YouTube since the past 3 years, every day 11:30. The time is fixed. So like everyone knows 11:30 it's going to happen. So there's no ambiguity around that. What I feel is that occasionally, maybe once in 15 days or a month, you have to put out a blockbuster quantity video as well, or content which is blockbuster, just to get out of the usual and make an impact. Like there has to be a upward graph in between, which will catch more followers.
Right. Now, how does this translate for brands? Kunal, I'll come to you with a context of how the gap can be bridged, but Udit and Achint, let me hear from you guys as to how does this translate for brands when you're looking, like for instance, there was this comparison between Neha Dhupia sort of a influencer program, and she did something with a brand that was a fan, and that didn't work at all. Whereas she did something with her child being born and finance and trying to get like the right insurance cover, and that worked way better. So, in comparison, when you look at brands who are trying to get influencers, what is it that you're looking at from this context or from this standpoint? Achint, we'll start.
So I think authenticity is very important, if you ask me, and that's also an example that you just articulated very well. Consumers are looking to relate to the influencer. They find, they try to find an aspect of their personality in the influencer somewhere, right? And when the chord strikes, suddenly, there is a very different kind of relationship. And as a brand, that is something we look at. Does the influencer truly believe what they are doing? First of all, are they being able to bring out their personality in a truthful way across different kinds of things that they do for us? Because you can see through it, right? Across a variety of content that they create. And thirdly, as a brand, it's important for the influencer to understand the objective of that particular engagement, right? So there are engagements which are very, very sale first. There are engagements which are very, very, I would say, conversation or content first. And there are influencers, good influencers spend a lot of time thinking about it. I think every piece of content that goes out has a lot of background hard work that goes into it, right? It's not very trivial to just put things out just because you're a good influencer, right? In fact, the bigger you become, the more hard work it takes, because your expectations rise from your followers. So that's something that we look at in terms of real passion and understanding of the influencer in the space that we operate in.
Udit, let's hear from you.
I think it goes back where I started from. It's about trust, transparency, honesty. But going back to the examples, I think there's a lot of, there is the market of influencer marketing, or let's say the entire ecosystem, it flooded with agencies who can get you the influencer. But we need to understand that this also has even science from a signals perspective. There is science to everything that your audience consumes. So while the Neha Dhupia example works beautifully, is what you said, but for me the larger goal metric would be association ko main choose karu, or I would go ahead with celebrity status. Because see, when I look at Neha Dhupia, it's not person like me, it's again celebrity status. Now, like Achint said, that if it's a tactical sale, may work. But when it comes to relatability, when it comes to authenticity, and when it also comes to attaining that thing, tomorrow if somebody wants to become a YouTuber, wants to become a creator, those are the areas where, the brand teams and an agency partner and a tool can, possibly play a lot of roles. So it's not like, a 10-minute decision making, going by the gut of someone and sitting in the room who will say, okay, let's do it. And, even like, most of us have said here, there's a lot of thinking. In fact, more than the brands, the influencers and the creators are much more thoughtful of creating content of what their audience wants to consume. And there are at times brands who will just shove that off, saying, I just want this particular type of content. And when it doesn't perform, it backfires on the influencer, that the association didn't work. So, we need to listen back to what the influencer is saying, what's working in my, community. All of those signals, I think matter a lot when you're planning the entire strategy for TV that we have.
Absolutely. With that, I'm going to now, quickly ask you each one of you. I'll start with Shilpa. 2 things that can be done to forge better brand influencer relationships. Just 2 things. For each one of you, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
So I think the brand should be able to give a lot of flexibility to the influencer. Generally, what happens is that they give the same kind of rigid guidelines to all the bloggers. And at times what happens is monotonous content comes up. The same dialogues, the same kind of pictures, and the creativity is lost. So I think the flexibility of creativity that the brands could give to the influencer, I think is very important. And I think that is one key thing I would say.
Can we hear from Faisal, and then I'll switch to the brands. The two things you're looking for to forge better relationships.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Shilpa. Many brands, they try to be very forceful about what they want. And agencies, some of the agencies obviously commoditize everything, how it's happening. So that's a little unfortunate part, because that forced thing is always seen. You can see it when it's forced, because it's not the personality of the influencer. And things should not look sponsored, because when it starts to look sponsored, then the audience catches it out and there's no belief in the influencer that he believes in that product. So I think if the influencer himself believes in that product, is using that product or using that service, then I think it's more authentic. That authenticity will come if, the brand says that this is what we want to achieve with it, you do it your way.
Right, flexibility clearly. Achint, Udit, what do you think can be done better to forge better relationships?
Yeah, again, I'll go back to, number one is alignment on objectives and clarity on what is it that needs to be done between the two before you start any campaign. Second, I think, is co-investment in the outcome. So rather than having a continuous model of, let me pay you a fixed fee and do some content for me, how can we move this industry to become where influencers are actually partaking in the results as well, and in the process, getting more out of it than just being used as assets at different points in time.
Right, Udit.
I think more than the transactional scheme of things and the campaigns, I would feel that there should be a no agenda connect with the influencers, because only when you're in the exploration journey is when you're trying to find a new influencer. You don't go into the market with a fixed mindset. And this goes back to old public relation days. How would you find a media person? How would you forge those relationships? It is basic connect. Coffee connect is what I would say that, one should start with for an influencer campaign. No agenda, just a discussion. And the second part is where and I'm a big believer of that, while marketing automation, MarTech stacks can automate a host of things, but there has to be a science in the brand fit that is, that you're trying to find for your campaigns. There has to be people intervention that needs to be taken care of. And one loophole, I think, which is with the ecosystem, since it is at the nascent stage, is the measurement today is fragmented. So while we've talked about top level measurement or top KPI measurement, even how data is collated, represented, and measured is a big gap. So we need to fix that problem even when we are trying to attain any kind of objective with, let's say, a kind of influencer campaign or any other outreach that one tries to entail.
Right, so Kunal, I'm going to bring you in on this one. And what can brands and influencers do so they can forge better relationships? What do you have to say on this one? You're on mute if you can just unmute.
I completely agree with Udit, because when you have a relationship which is very transactional, you are unable to make meaningful engagement with anyone. And that is the reason you need to go beyond transaction. Also, connecting and giving flexibility, because you're going to a subject matter expert. If you try to become subject matter expert yourself, you're unable to let them create the content that will actually be seen genuine by the followers of the influencers. So I strongly believe that one is that a meaningful conversation will come with non-transactional relationships, and from an influencer standpoint, they should have the flexibility of creating content that they feel would go well with their followers. And third, and which is very, very critical, is that from an influencer standpoint, that while they are monetizing everything, they need to also start creating content around brands organically, because that is the time when actually the followers would understand that while there are focused objective-led campaign that they are doing with the brand, where brand wants to push a message, but then there are times when they want to actually integrate the brand that they have been working with on the transactional value, so that they can actually have they could possibly present themselves not as just a media outlet which is selling ad. And that is, I would say, would be required. There is a balance between both the sides that is required. And I'm sure you'll cover the matrix of measurement, which Udit has covered. So I'll let it be for the question when you ask about measurement, because
yes,
again is
we'll come to that one. I'm going to quickly, I have 4 more questions, so I'm going to really ask you guys to sort of look at this as a rapid fire format, because I want to open up. We have 16 audience questions already. So the next question is actually to both Udit and Faisal. Identifying and working with mega and micro influencers, what does it entail, and how do you ensure brand fit? So the question is about fitment and about looking at both micro and mega influencers. So we can start with Udit and then go to Achint.
Okay, I think goes back to the fact that what do I want to influence? Going back to the term influencer marketing, right? So if it's potentially a car that I want to sell, and if I'm trying to drive an unbiased review, there is third-party advocacy that I'm seeking out of the reviews. They may be very subtle, or let's say nascent placements of the key takeaways or the core outcomes from a product standpoint that I would like to talk about. So while the influencer brief could be that, they need to be authentic and transparent and what content works for them, but from a brand standpoint, whatever are the key takeaways, we want to place them in a manner that it looks organic. It looks to the fact that, I've chosen this person because he's a fit for my product. Not that, okay, here is my product, you need to tell these 4 features. So, there's a huge difference in the way even the direction happens. Advocacy is core. To be very fair, and might sound repetitive, influencer engagement is driving an advocacy layer at the first level. That's why people follow somebody for something. So that's where I would like to conclude, because for example, for a car, the buying journey goes between 30 to 90 days of gestation. So that's why I said active engagement more than passive engagement. Lots in it. I think we can go on and on with it.
Right, Achint, let's hear from you.
I think you asked about mega and micro influencers, right? So it's a combination of both, Shreya. I would say, yeah, every micro influencer at some point, or some of them will become a mega influencer in the future. So it's important to invest in the right relationships, in the right conversations early on. And a lot of times, the way we see the micro influencer campaigns are more like UGC campaigns. They are in a way invigorating some of those conversations, while the mega influencer led content is more of a trust, a stamp thing, and also creating conversations at scale, with 1 or 2 pieces of content. So it's a combination of both. I think both have a role to play, and we work with all kinds of influencers actually in every campaign.
Right. Now I'm going to flip the lens and ask the big M question, the M that's on everybody's minds, and some love it, some just don't like it at all, but measurement. So Shilpa and Faisal, I'm going to start with Shilpa and then come to Faisal and ask you, how do influencers view measurement? And do you think the kind of parameters that are assigned actually do justice, or do you think there's a lot to be done in that area?
Sure. Before I answer about measurement, I would also want to mention about mega and micro influencers and then integrating measurement in it. When I started blogging, influencer is a new word. When I started blogging, that time it used to be the blog followed by Facebook and Instagram, and there used to be no stories, there used to be no IGTV and other and reels, etc. All those are new mediums which have come now. The industry is developing, we are all creating and learning on the go. I'm sure Faisal would agree with that. And while we get comfortable with one medium, another medium comes out. So YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram stories, TikTok, and now Reels. Mega and micro, I don't know how the brands measure. I mean, I assume that it's through Instagram, but obviously every medium is growing, and hence it's actually good to look at all mediums when we talk about these terms. Now coming to measurement, I would say every brand is different. While some look at the number of followers, some might look at pictures, content, type of comments, and I would say one size fits all does not fit here. So I would say I mean, for me, I would say I would create my best content, do the best job, give it my 100%, and then present it. Measurement comes later. The type of content that I create is my own measurement.
Right. Faisal, you.
I think measurement is something which initially you get really hyped about, especially when you get onto a new platform, because like of late, a lot of new platforms are coming. TikTok when Reels came, and now I think YouTube is also working on something similar. So initially you get that kick in terms of measuring, but like the amount of content you're putting out, you can't keep up with, measuring everything. And this is my personal experience. If something you expect to perform very well, it does not. And something you expect not to perform, it performs really well. So rather than get disappointed, for me, like if there's a set of content which I made, once it's live, that story is over. Move on to the next one, irrespective of how it performed. Like you learn from it, but definitely you move on. As far as I have seen, whatever agencies and brands I have like spoken to, majority of them are looking at the number of followers as a measurement criteria. And very few are looking at engagement. I personally look at engagement because there are times where where agencies are like, you know what, like you have less followers than X, but you're charging more than them. So that's where I pitch the engagement, because I personally feel that engagement is the best way to look at it, because like followers can be bought, but engagement is something which is very difficult to, fake it. So that genuineness can be seen, the kind of comments, the kind of stickiness of the audience, and the kind of audience as well.
Great. Now, thank you, Faisal and Shilpa, because you have spoken about one side of the spectrum, and there is the obvious other side, which is obviously got a lot more reason to want to keep this on point, So let's hear from Udit first and then Achint as to what is it that you guys are looking for when it comes to the M word? ROI, ROO, all of those things. So.
I think no jargon. Let's try to keep it simple for everybody, because most of the attendee would not know ROAS and stuff like that, or if we go into the technicality of things. Again, going back to 2007, it all started with this gamification that Mark Zuckerberg brought into the picture, something called likes. Then something called engagement came into the picture. Then something which was the lamest measurement called 3-second views came into the picture. To now where, things like active audiences, things like actual time spent on video, things like the real commentary, not the spammers, not the bots, but the real commentary. To very few people actually also showing that, see, based on my video, this guy bought your car based on my opinion. It is a pervasive journey. Obviously, when you are not using any automation, no tool, no nothing, you'll rely on an agency. Agency will give you an Excel sheet. They will sort the followers out, and by default, what will happen is you go with the followers. Then there's something new called engagement per post. That is also pretty much follower. But how do you do a cumulative score out of everything that's happening into the system? And what's the way of post campaign evaluation measurement? Again, this would change for each and every brand. Like for me, I may measure a campaign after 6 months of my launch. I would do a quick measurement within a quarter of my launch, as to how can I revamp my influencer strategy. It should not fall in the middle when a campaign is, happening per se. So the system, actually what we've not been able to crack till date is, how is measurement getting consolidated? and how are we leveraging learnings from that measurement for the next campaign. Because what happens is, if you work with even a typical purchase function, they will go with lowest cost, even if it's a preferred vendor. And that's where the strata of data gets broken. You may have the list of influencers, you may have the list of best performers, but how are you tying it back day on day? So I think we need to find a tool or a measurement interface and define measurement objectives prior to the campaign. Because then with the influencer, you cannot go back and fight saying that you didn't, achieve this one.
Yes.
So I think all of this is structured, unstructured right now, but with evolving tools, with evolving startups, and possibly ClanConnect, we can try to, bring it all in. And that's how you measure things. There are technicalities here as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm actually, the reason I'm being a time monster is because we have 10 more minutes and 21 questions from the audience, and I want to do justice to those as well. Achint, quickly from you, measurement.
It's a big problem. Let me start with that, right? Nobody knows what is to be measured or what can be measured. I think more important than that, people know what is to be measured. But I agree with Faisal. I think engagement rate is a good metric in absence of other metrics. And a lot of people have very different engagement rates despite having very different follower base, right? So there are two very different things. Second, we also look at a bunch of mind metrics through brand lift studies when we run influencer campaigns as to how the imagery of the brand or the product or the campaign has moved the needle in terms of consumers' perception about the brand. So these are the two things specifically we look at, but they are not sufficient if you ask me.
Right. Kunal, I'm going to ask you for one line on measurement, and then I'm going to open up the audience Q&A. I actually had two more questions and a rapid fire round, but clearly this is something that needs a few hours, not just one. So Kunal, quick one line from you, and then the audience Q&A.
Yeah, this is the most important question. So I would like to actually answer it in more than one line.
Go ahead.
I would like to actually take the point from Udit, wherein the matrix and the expectation that is there. I strongly believe that there has to be a collective ownership on the outcome of any campaign that is happening. And that collective ownership will come only when you have a real-time analysis of what kind of content is performing how, and how can you boost a content which is doing well. And that is what we strongly believe, that one is that your expectation should be set right. So when you're actually starting your campaign, you should understand that even if somebody has a following reach, what is the kind of expected reach that I'm going to get with 10 or 20 influencers. So one is you're starting with the expectation, right? Second, you have the real-time data analysis of the campaign that is going live. So if, say, Faisal's content is doing well, at that point of time, Udit can put in some more dollars to say that let's boost this content, let's promote this content because this content is doing well versus 10 other content that is getting created. And that is where we are saying collective ownership. That is what our tool will enable them. And third is we would also enable brands to actually effectively analyze. When I say 30 parameters, it is going to change how the campaigns are. And we are not an agency. We are not, we'll be working with the agencies to give them this tech play where they would use this tech play to help and enable these brands to effectively look at and not get ever disappointed with the measurement of the outcome that is coming together when they're actually running a campaign with an influencer on a certain objective which is predefined. So that's on the measurement side of it.
Right. Thanks so much, Kunal. I'm actually going to now flip the question and answer segment open. And the first question is actually to Kunal. And it says, at what point should a startup jump into getting an influencer marketing strategy in place? Does it depend largely on the product or service you're into, or a mix of current marketing strategies that one is using?
So I would strongly believe, and we work with a lot of startups at my other venture, Value 360. And I think influencer are one of the very, very effective medium to actually start your consumer outreach very early. So I would say any startup which is ready to actually do a market outreach, they should definitely start looking out from influencer marketing as one of the marketing mix that they are actually looking at. And if they are doing digital, I would like to just point out one data analytics where there was an experiment that was done where they actually created a campaign and they connected it with commerce, and they did the digital performance marketing also, and they did influencer marketing. And when they compared, the sales was 6.5 times when they actually compared the influencer marketing campaign outcome. So I'm talking about sales impact that influencer marketing has given is almost 6.5 times to a performance marketing that any digital performance marketing that I've given. So I would say that if anybody is putting in money, I think this is where in the digital space they should be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. That was from Shalini Sharma. The next question is from Shubhodip Banerjee, and I'm going to address this to Udit because it's in context of car brands. Guys, if you can keep your answers really short and clipped, we can actually attend to a lot more of the questions. I'm going to request you guys to do that because we're 6 minutes away from closing time. So many car brands are not supporting beginners as I started blogging, and many car companies deny to lend their car even they don't allow a walk around. To address that,
I think it's subjective to the person that you're dealing with within the brand or the agency side. We as brand have a lot of examples where we even at Auto Expo, and I remember this, a 10-year-old guy did a walkthrough of the Gloucester. Okay, so I think it's all about a mindset. Like Faisal said, at one point in time, it used to say, this is trade media, this is print media, this is magazine media. Now it's always said that this guy's a YouTuber. There's a digital media. I think the differentiation line is going off. And take COVID-19 as example. You know, more audience building, more consumption online. So I think everybody will get a fair chance. I think we should keep trying is the answer. There is no yes, no, or maybe towards it.
Right. The next question is from an anonymous attendee. What are the top 3 things that a brand look for when deciding the merit of influencer engagement? Achint, I'll post this to you if you can hear from you. The top 3 things that a brand.
Sorry, your voice was breaking. I understand you're talking about the top 3 things that brands look for, right?
When deciding of an influence engagement.
Yeah, it's still bad connection. Probably connection at my end is bad, but yeah, as I said, right. I mean, first is definitely the reach, and I'm talking about Myntra. Other brands may have different objectives. Second is authenticity, and the third is engagement percentage. Right. Currently, these are the 3 things we look at.
I think we are missing on Shreya because Shreya's network.
Can you guys hear me? I'm here.
Now we can.
Yes. Okay. So the next question is from an anonymous attendee, and the question is, how is the revenue or market size of the influencer ecosystem calculated? Is it based on the accumulated marketing spend of brands? This is open to any of you. If you want to answer this, just go ahead and take the question.
Is this about the entire market size? Then I can answer that question.
Yes, it is about the market size. Kunal, why don't you take this question?
Yeah, so this is based on a survey that Business Insider did, and the analysis was done basis the percentage that was allocated on influencer marketing. In a survey that they did in the December 2019, marketers said that 10% of their digital advertising spend are allocated on influencer marketing, and that was calculated basis the entire advertising market, and based on that they calculated this number, and this is also validated by one of the other report in US, which largely outlined that the entire global market size is right now 9 billion. They've actually taken into consideration different brands largely, and then looking at the sample size, they have actually done the entire market calculation. So today, when we look at the influencer marketing, I think largely that we are basing that based on the report that we have an access to.
So if that's the case, then thank you so much for that, Kunal. The next question is from Minol Ajikar, and she's asking this to both Shilpa and Faisal. Is there any product or brand where you feel that influencers may not impact? So Faisal, why don't you answer this, and then Shilpa, you can answer it too.
I think an influencer can impact any sort of area. However, the level of impact would definitely differ because different people connect with different kind of people, and largely because this is a passion-driven field. When there's passion, it reflects and obviously it influences as well.
And Shilpa?
I would say that I think in every aspect an influencer can affect the thing, and I would give you an example. So I go back to my days when I had promoted a tech product, which was also a mobile phone. I was taken to Dubai for a mobile phone launch, and amongst 50 tech media, I was the only lifestyle influencer. Those tech media also came to me and they were like, if you don't write tech for a mobile phone brand, what do you do? And I was like, please read my blog and then I'll answer that question, because it was a lifestyle oriented product. Because obviously if you have a mobile phone, the same features would be there in a 5,000 rupees mobile as well as a 50,000 rupees mobile. So you should position it in a certain way so that it becomes a lifestyle product. And that's what I would say, that even for a tech brand, we looked at the lifestyle positioning.
Right. So I hope that answered your question. I have a few more questions. I'm just going to quickly ask. This one's for Udit. According to you, what would be an ideal influencer program for an Indian brand which focuses on products designed for mothers?
I think that's a tricky one, but again, I would say, why not even, let's say, fashion bloggers who've, become moms. Conventionally, obviously, you can look at communities like, Momspresso, mommy bloggers, stuff like that, because the target audience is moms when you're trying to reach out to these campaigns. The most recent one that I remember is Miss Coco Queen. She became a mother. So, if you're looking out for a campaign, you can actually do a mix of, fashion lifestyle influencers who become mothers, and conventionally look at mommy bloggers, to influence your product purchase or, to potentially impact your campaign.
Right. Thanks so much, Udit. There's another question which is repeated several times, by the way, Udit. Just a quick question. When is MG Gloucester releasing? So this, I think, has repeated 5 or 6 times in all the Q&A. So why don't you just tell us that if you have?
See, technically, officially, we call it, it will be announced really, really soon. So the Diwali timeline is what we've committed to from a consumer standpoint. So please stay tuned. There are a lot of teasers, almost one every day. Keep watching.
This one's for Achint. How have brands approached influencer engagement during the COVID pandemic? And what has changed between March 2020 and now? So Achint, why don't you take that?
Yeah, I think the one big lens that we took once this whole pandemic struck is how do we help people, number one, and enable them to stay more engaged and in a positive mindset. So we use a lot of our influencers to do positive stories on what's happening around, because you were already hearing a lot of negative news throughout. Because work from home became such an important thing for everybody, right? How do you use fashion in context of work from home? And not just for yourself, but also for your families. Fitness became an important piece, so how do you, drive a lot of content around fitness? So what was meaningful in consumers' life, and it still continues to be meaningful, which is to staying in a positive and healthy mindset while you're at home. That is where we completely shifted gears in terms of our influencer engagements.
Thanks so much, Achint. I'm very conscious of time. We still have 25 questions. I couldn't do the rapid fire as I had planned, but there's so much more I think that the audience has in terms of asking the panel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to promise the audience that there are 25 questions and we will get back to you with these answers. We'll perhaps post them on a blog, and I will interact with all of our influencers and panelists that we have today online. We will come back to you. With that, I'll hand the stage back to Anubhuti. Anubhuti will bring you back in, promising everybody that all of your questions will be answered. Thank you so much for asking us, and we will ensure that you get answers to all of them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shreya, for this fabulous discussion. A lot of questions unanswered, as I can see, but unfortunately, the time does not permit. I would like to thank our panelists, Achint, Faisal, Kunal, Shilpa, and Udit for their time and insights today. Thank you to all our attendees for taking the time out this evening. In case you wish to revisit the session, a recording of this will be available on our YouTube channel, bit.ly Reputation Today on YT. We will be back with the next edition of Primetime with ClanConnect on Wednesday, 30th September at 6 p.m. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at RepTodayMag for registration and speaker details. See you soon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, panelists. You guys were awesome. I'm just wishing we had more time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shreya. That was awesome moderation. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
And I can read, I think the most read comment today is Faisal sir is the best. So
He is a rock star.
He has huge following, huge following.
Yeah.
okay, cool. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you and bye-bye.